Or maybe when they constantly hear on the airways people like you and Hillary Clinton and others constantly depicting Trump as an existential threat to democracy in America.
Piers, you're totally guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. Because you support Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has done 2,000 times worse, and you know it. You won't even run it on this show.
Okay.
You won't even run it on this show because Donald Trump, what he says is so much worse than anything a Democrat has ever said about him. So you won't even run it on this show. So that's it. Are you telling Donald Trump, you better shut up? You better not say any of those gross things that you always say. You know that he joked about smashing Nancy Pelosi's husband's head in with a hammer.
Yeah, and the truth
One
is,
of his
Cenk,
lunatic fans tried to murder Nancy Pelosi's husband, and he's like, it's so funny. Do you know that when they try to murder his vice president, he then turned around and said he deserved it? He's a psycho.
What's going on, everybody? Candace Owens got into a heated debate with Cenk Uygur on Piers Morgan Uncensored about the consequences of political rhetoric and when it goes too far. Candace Owens stayed calm and collected while Cenk Uygur got into his feelings and yelled and ranted about his hatred of Donald Trump. With that introduction, let's watch Candace Owens lay waste to Cenk Uygur. Check it out.
He constantly talks about violence. Hey, if someone takes out somebody from with a stretcher, I'll pay the legal bills. Attack people. Oh, my political opponents, I'm going to jail them. I'm going to attack them.
Well, to be clear, hang on. To be clear, you're trying to equate him making a joke about maybe slapping or punching someone in a crowd with someone.
Can I make a joke about someone taking an AK Trump across the face?
Well, hang on, was somebody
can I make that joke?
Was somebody
can I make that joke, Piers?
Well, hang on, somebody actually shooting him on a rally stage and then very nearly shooting him on a golf course with an AK-47. Do you not see the difference? Let me finish. The shooter at the golf course, specifically in his recent social media posts, parroted Kamala Harris, saying that he was effectively an existential threat to democracy in America. You're doing the same. Does nothing make you pause?
You're insane.
Hillary Clinton's doing the same.
Trump does it 2,000 times worse.
Because you think he does it,
your
you
great
should do
idea
it too.
is Democrats shouldn't. Your great idea is Democrats shouldn't campaign against your beloved Donald Trump because some moron, mentally unstable guy took a shot at him. Okay, or two of them did. You know what? I can protect Donald Trump. Ban assault weapons. That'll protect Donald Trump way more than any of, say nice things about him now that some lunatic took some shots at him.
Or maybe when they constantly hear on the airways people like you and Hillary Clinton and others constantly depicting Trump as an existential threat to democracy in America.
Piers, you're totally guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. Because you support Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has done 2,000 times worse, and you know it. You won't even run it on this show.
Okay.
You won't even run it on this show because Donald Trump, what he says is so much worse than anything a Democrat has ever said about him. So you won't even run it on this show. So that's it. Are you telling Donald Trump, you better shut up? You better not say any of those gross things that you always say. You know that he joked about smashing Nancy Pelosi's husband's head in with a hammer.
Yeah, and the truth
One
is,
of his lunatic fans tried to murder Nancy Pelosi's husband, and he's like, it's so funny. Do you know that when they try to murder his vice president, he then turned around and said he deserved it? He's a psycho. And you defend him every day, Piers.
Here's the problem. You have no idea what I've said about Trump when he's done these things. If you had, you wouldn't accuse me of not talking about them because I always do.
Shut up?
Because I always do.
Are you telling him to shut up?
I want to bring in Candace Owens here. Candace, look, we're 48 hours after the latest assassination attempt, and I'm listening to another liberal who I respect. I've had Cenk on a lot on this show, absolutely losing his...
Hey, if you like videos like this one, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
What I make of all of this is that if you are going to legitimately tell people that someone is a monster, that somebody is a dictator, that somebody is literally Adolf Hitler, if you're going to tell people that this person is a constant threat, why wouldn't somebody try to eliminate that threat? If this situation had been reversed and I had just watched somebody try to shoot Kamala Harris, I would be definitively saying how wrong it was. I would be saying to people that despite the fact that I do not want her to be president, of course, she is not so much of a threat that she needs to be shot. They don't stop this rhetoric because they do not want these assassination attempts to stop on Donald Trump. And I want to be very clear. the circumstance that we find ourselves in the West is one of remarkable privilege. And when you're in times of remarkable privilege, it creates actually an issue of having a lot of weak men, right? Weak men are the ones that are going out here
Like
proclaiming that Donald Trump is a threat, proclaiming that Donald Trump is somebody that is a dictator because they've never had real conflict in their lives. And you're about to see that example right now, the difference in the demeanor between someone like Cenk and Eric Prince, who I greatly respect, and who is somebody who has seen real conflict and understands what real threat is, right? He understands real threat. Cenk is somebody that grew up, obviously, with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's never had to fight for anything in his life and has never had to put his life before somebody else's. So it's very easy for him to behave like this, to behave demonstrably like a toddler who is throwing his toys out of the pram when he doesn't get what he wants. And so he heightens his rhetoric and says, why am I not getting what I want? This man's a dictator. This man's a threat. And he's not being realistic. And it's embarrassing to our country, whether it was a person on the right or the left.
You guys haven't addressed it at all.
Cenk, I promise you are capable
He
of
wants to terminate the Constitution, so you like that?
As somebody else speaks.
The way that this whole thing has been framed as if the right wing doesn't do rhetoric that is 10,000 times more dangerous and violent over and over again. Trump's fans sent pipe bombs to every one of his enemies. Trump fans hit Nancy Pelosi's husband in the head with a hammer, and Trump never even denounced it. He laughs about it. So if we were using the Trump standard, we'd laugh about him getting shot at, but I'm not as disgusting as Donald Trump is.
If I were Cenk, I don't know if I'd go around challenging anyone to a disgusting contest. That's just my opinion. Obviously, Cenk's blustering overshadows the more important topic of harmful political rhetoric and at what point it becomes dangerous. I don't think a logical person alive, including myself, believes that any discourse that has the potential to get another person harmed is acceptable. To be fair, I do think that both sides of the aisle can take things too far at times. However, the vitriol aimed at Donald Trump from his opponents, celebrities, and the media is at a level I haven't seen in my lifetime. It's expected that Democrats and Republicans will make salacious claims about one another, especially in an election that's for the highest office in the land. But not only does Donald Trump have to contend with his opposition, but also 80% or more of the media. You cannot turn on any of the major news networks without hearing mention of him being a threat to democracy, a monster, or Hitler. I think if it were coming from a handful of sources, it would be more palatable, and I don't know that they'd even be having this discussion right now. So I believe that the real issue is the volume of sources that the rhetoric is coming from that's made the attacks on Donald Trump a problem that can lead to attempts on his life. As far as Cenk's argument, I think saying that it's flawed is a massive understatement. He's comparing accusations of being a threat to democracy by every opponent and every news outlet every day to Trump making a joke during one of his rallies about some jerk that was causing a problem in the crowd. Then, when Piers Morgan calls him out on his weak comparison, he screams, pretending to be a tough guy, "Can I joke that I'm going to slap Trump across the face?" Yes. Yes, Cenk, you can. That's your right. And that's the point. You're comparing something said in jest to an onslaught of hatred aimed at one man for 8 years straight. It's like comparing apples to car batteries. The two things aren't even in the same stratosphere. And I think Candace makes a really good point about the time that we're currently in and strong versus weak men. And much to his dismay, I would imagine, I think she probably described Cenk's life perfectly. It's just laughable that when she mentions weak men, he says, like Trump. I don't think weak men get shot in the head, pump their fist in the air, and say, fight, fight, fight. Unless you're in that situation, I don't really think any of us know how we would respond. But I think Donald Trump is in the minority with the way he responded. His actions in that situation alone put to bed any question about his strength as a man. Cenk has the ability to go on TV, scream, yell, complain, and make money off of criticizing other people because a lot of strong men sacrifice their lives for his right to do so. But don't click off this video quite yet. There's plenty more lunacy to come. Let's get back to the video.
Criticized Trump for lots of his incendiary language over the years. But as far as I...
So how long should he stop?
Hang on. So far as I know, he's never called one of his opponents Adolf Hitler.
I've never called him Hitler. But I love Sandra Day O'Connor's quote about, it was about Bush and Cheney at the time. about fascism. She said, we've got to be careful of these beginnings so that we don't get those endings. So what I'm worried about is a guy who says that he loves dictators and writes love letters to them, and that he loves it when everybody has to stand up and applaud and no one can disagree with the leader of the country. He loves it. He thought we should terminate the Constitution. When they said to him, hey, they're trying to murder, your fans are trying to murder your own vice president, he told Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, he deserves it. I have to tell people the reality about Donald Trump.
I do genuinely feel very apprehensive about what is happening and what may happen. And I dread to think what would happen in America if somebody did actually assassinate Donald Trump, as they are repeatedly trying to do.
Yes. I mean, I was completely underwhelmed by the immediate reactions, even from Kamala Harris, just that simple tweet, and violence has no place, which felt like it was copy and pasted from a PR firm. There was no shock. There was no, this is absolutely wrong. There was no expressment of true frustration and disappointment, or even the recognition that that could be her, right? Like if you're trying to be a person that wants to be the president of the United States, this could potentially be you one day. So you should be outraged. I didn't sense that outrage from her. And rather what you have correctly attest to is they just kept going on with the rhetoric the very next day, which to me is signaling to their followers. One of the things that's really frustrating, I think, for a lot of people is to watch the way the media is constantly allowed to detach themselves from the consequences of what they say, which is to say that somebody shoots up and tries to shoot a president, and the media is like, well, I was just calling him Hitler, but I never said to anyone that they should go shoot someone. And like I said, when you are saying Adolf Hitler is taking the stage, when you are saying that we are going to completely lose democracy, which is so far from reality, it's embarrassing for Cenk to say that, because we don't have to imagine Trump as president. He already was for 4 years. People were living very well. The economy was doing very well. And so this rhetoric may have made sense in 2016. It doesn't make sense now in 2024. And so it's frustrating to see that. And I think what is good, though, is to allow people around the world to get this insight into what's happening in America, because you hear the left constantly purporting to be the side of peace, right? And then you watch someone like Cenk, right? And then you listen to people that are on the right, the awful people on the right. You listen to Eric Prince, you listen to me, and you're able to really comprehend who are the radicals in American society. Because you can scream peace, you can scream, oh, love is love all day, but you hear their rhetoric within 24 hours after a former president was almost shot, and they never dial it down. I mean, these people, I want and encourage violence all the time.
So, Piers, no. The framing of this entire conversation is insane. So if somebody was just watching this conversation, they would think that I ordered an attack on the Capitol, or that the left wing did. No, Donald Trump had a violent mob attack our Capitol, and then you make it seem like the left violence problem. And then I strongly and very loudly condemned any violence. Shooting at Donald Trump is the worst thing in the world. I can't be any clearer about it.
But you don't
any
condemn,
assassination attempt, any violence, any physicality.
Yeah,
Hold on.
You don't condemn any of the incendiary rhetoric.
Let me finish my point. I condemn it as forcefully as I possibly can. And then what do the two right-wingers do? Neither one of them condemned the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. Instead, they came up with crazy conspiracy theories. And what does that do? It encourages their fans to go, oh, yeah, well, it's not a big deal to attack our political opponents. It's not a big deal to attack the Capitol. It's not a big deal to send pipe bombs to Donald Trump's political opponents. So they encourage this kind of violence 24/7, and on January 6th, we saw it in spectacular fashion. And then you're trying to reframe the debate as criticism of Donald Trump, legitimate political criticism of Donald Trump, is somehow the thing that's causing political violence in this country. No, it is 98% right-wing political violence. The 2% where it's the left wing, I hate it, I despise it, I condemn it.
Really, Cenk? 98%. You really want to stick with that? Does anyone out there think he believes this stuff? Or is all of this stuff he says and the screaming and yelling all just to make for good news clips and allow people like me to react to him? I don't know. Let's break down some of the things he said. He mentioned multiple times that someone tried to kill Mike Pence. That never happened. Someone in the crowd on January 6th said, we should hang Mike Pence. I don't think that's okay, but it's a far cry from an attempt on his life. Cenk's entire debate strategy is twofold. One, yell louder than everyone else to drown out any points that they're making, and 2, manipulate words and rewrite history to help make his argument. One example from this exchange is the Mike Pence incident. But here's another subtle one that people may miss. When he was listing the things that Trump has said that are, in his words, 2,000 times worse than any rhetoric coming from the left, when he said Donald Trump laughed and joked about smashing Nancy Pelosi's husband in the head with a hammer. Did you catch it? You see what he did there? If you're a casual listener, you'd think, based on how he worded that sentence, that Donald Trump was encouraging people to commit violence against Paul Pelosi. If he was arguing in good faith or basing it on facts, he would say Trump laughed about Paul Pelosi getting hit in the head with a hammer, which isn't okay if Trump did in fact do that. But the way Cenk worded that suggests that Trump was encouraging people to hurt someone, when in reality, if he did laugh or joke about the incident, like Cenk says, he was laughing or joking after the fact. If you examine most of his arguments, I think that you'll find that he uses this tactic regularly. To drive this point home, I'll give one more example. One of the many times he was yelling over one about how much worse Trump is about inciting violence, when he was talking about someone causing a problem at one of his rallies, he said, if someone goes out on a stretcher, I'll pay the hospital bills, and go attack people. It's more of the same wordplay. Do you see how he threw in at the end there, and to go attack people? Again, to the casual viewer, that extra point that's a complete lie sounds like it adds to the case he's making. But no one ever stops in the middle of his yelling and says, wait. What do you mean he says go attack people? So he gets away with it time and time again. Maybe it's just because they don't take him seriously and they don't think anybody else does, so they don't need to correct him. I don't know. You know, I'm surprised that to counter Cenk's argument, Candace didn't talk about the BLM riots and how the left encouraged that behavior, like when Nancy Pelosi didn't denounce it. And when asked directly about it, she said, people will do what they do. Or when our current vice president herself promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund, who was bailing out rioters. And how about the time the CNN reporter stood in front of a burning building and called the protest mostly peaceful? And yes, I consider the media part of the left. When I think of political violence, I think of the events of the summer of 2020 and the BLM riots and Antifa running wild. So when Cenk says the right engages in 80% of political violence, I honestly don't know how he can say that with a straight face. I think he hopes people will just forget about these things if he yells loud enough and repeats his talking points over and over, as evidenced in this video. I could keep going forever on this topic, but I doubt anyone's watching anyway. And if you are still here, I really appreciate it. And if you like videos of dopes getting roasted like Cenk, click on one of the videos that's popped up on the screen right now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.